June 20th, 1944. Aboard the USS Enterprise in the Philippine Sea, Lieutenant Junior Grade Saburo Kitamura of the Imperial Japanese Navy stood in the enlisted mess hall, his hands trembling as he held a tray overflowing with food, more than his entire squadron had shared in 3 days. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes soaked in butter, green beans, white bread, apple pie, and a glass of cold milk. Behind the counter, an American sailor, annoyed by Kitamura's hesitation, pointed toward the ice cream station and asked, "Chocolate or vanilla?" The question made no sense. Ice cream on a warship? That was impossible. Ice cream required refrigeration, something no Japanese combat vessel could afford. Yet here, aboard America's most battle-hardened carrier, enemy prisoners were being offered a choice of frozen desserts. Just 4 hours earlier, Kitamura had been pulled from the Philippine Sea, one of 43 Japanese airmen rescued during what would be called the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. He had expected execution or, at best, starvation and torture. Japanese propaganda had made one thing clear. Americans were savages who ate prisoners and took pleasure in suffering. Instead, a U.S. Navy corpsman had treated his wounds, given him morphine for pain, and now, unbelievably, offered him ice cream. That simple question, chocolate or vanilla, would haunt Kitamura for decades. It was the moment his entire understanding of the war, of America, and of his own nation began to collapse. Across the Pacific, roughly 35,000 Japanese military personnel would experience American naval captivity and witness a level of abundance that shattered everything they'd been taught about their enemy's weakness. They saw aircraft carriers, where common sailors ate better than Japanese admirals, where machines created endless fresh water from seawater, and where ice cream machines ran nonstop. Even during combat, these encounters revealed a truth that no battlefield defeat could. America's strength was not only in its weapons, but in its logistics. The power of industrial abundance and measured in calories, comfort, and capability broke the spiritual foundation of Japanese military ideology. While Japanese sailors survived on rice balls and pickled vegetables, American crews enjoyed nearly 4,100 calories a day with fresh meat, bread, and vegetables. While Japanese carriers handled aviation fuel by hand, U.S. ships had automated systems. And while the Imperial Navy prayed for divine winds, the U.S. Navy created its own environment, with refrigeration, air conditioning, and even ice cream at sea. The transformation in perspective began the instant survivors were pulled aboard. Commander Mitsuo Fuchida, architect of the Pearl Harbor attack and later a Christian minister in America, described his 1945 rescue aboard the USS Missouri. "They pulled me from the water like a fish," he wrote, "and I prepared to die. Instead, a doctor examined my wounds while a sailor brought me coffee, real coffee hot with sugar and cream. I hadn't tasted it since 1942. The sailor even apologized that they were out of donuts. That casual remark, a shortage of donuts, while Japanese soldiers were eating leather belts, revealed a vast gulf between propaganda and reality. Captured Imperial Navy reports later confirmed that by 1944, most Japanese sailors received about 2,400 calories a day when supplies allowed. Protein came mostly from fish if fuel permitted fishing. Malnutrition and vitamin deficiencies were rampant. Beriberi, scurvy, and night blindness plagued the fleet. In contrast, U.S. naval records from 1944 show that carriers served about 15,000 meals daily, rotating through diverse menus: roast beef on Tuesday, fried chicken on Thursday, ham with pineapple on Sunday. Japanese prisoners used to monotonous rice meals were stunned by such variety. At sea, no less. Operating rooms aboard American carriers were equipped with X-ray machines, blood banks, and surgical tools comparable to those found in major hospitals on land. Antibiotics, especially penicillin, appeared almost miraculous to Japanese medical officers who witnessed infections healing in days instead of proving fatal over weeks. Pharmacist's mate, second-class Robert Wagner, serving on the USS Intrepid, later recalled treating Japanese prisoners who were shocked that Americans would use valuable medicine on enemies. One pilot with a severe leg infection repeatedly refused care, insisting, "Save it for Americans." Wagner eventually showed him the ship's medical storerooms, shelves stocked with sulfa drugs, penicillin, and morphine, to prove they had more than enough. The man broke down in tears. The repair capabilities of the U.S. Navy further demonstrated America's industrial dominance at sea. Japanese ships had to return home for even minor repairs, while American vessels could restore themselves during missions. Floating dry docks, repair ships, and onboard machine shops could produce spare parts, rebuild engines, and even fabricate new components from scratch. The USS Enterprise's workshop could manufacture nearly any part smaller than a full aircraft engine. Its welding shop ran without pause, and its electricians rewired systems even while the ship was under attack. When kamikaze assaults intensified in 1945, surviving Japanese pilots saw American damage control efficiency firsthand. Ensign Ryuji Nagatsuka, rescued after crash landing near the USS Randolph, described how the crew repaired battle damage while flight operations continued. They had foam that extinguished fires instantly, pumps that cleared flooding faster than it filled, and metal plates sealing holes before our eyes, he wrote. Teams worked like a machine, no shouting, no panic. They restored in hours what would have sunk our carriers. American food production aboard carriers was equally astonishing to captured Japanese personnel. Shipboard bakeries baked up to 15,000 loaves of bread daily. Butcher shops processed entire beef carcasses stored in freezers larger than Japanese submarines. Ice machines produced tons of ice each day for preserving food and cooling drinks. The Enterprise's galley alone consumed more electricity than an entire Japanese destroyer. Massive steam kettles could cook 300 gallons of soup at once, while electric mixers, dishwashers, and potato peelers performed work that would have required dozens of sailors in the Imperial Navy. The U.S. Navy's supply network revealed another side of its unmatched efficiency. Japanese fleets waited months for partial resupplies, while American carrier groups received everything they needed weekly, often without docking. Fleet oilers pumped millions of gallons of fuel at sea. Ammunition ships delivered tons of ordnance. Supply ships brought fresh produce, mail, replacement crews, and even comfort items from home. Lieutenant Minoru Tanaka, confined aboard the USS Hornet, described watching one such operation. 3 ships pulled alongside at once. Fuel lines to port, ammunition and supplies to starboard, and helicopters overhead delivering mail. In 3 hours, they received more than our carriers got in 3 months. I saw lettuce, tomatoes, fruit, real fruit, while we fought for the Emperor on empty stomachs and the Americans ate salads at sea. The American mail system left an equally deep impression. Japanese sailors might receive a single letter per year if lucky, while Americans received mail weekly, even in combat zones. V-mail, or microfilmed letters, arrived by the thousands alongside packages filled with cookies, candy, records, books, and photographs. This constant flow of communication kept morale high, maintaining a powerful connection between the sailors and home. Christmas 1944 created one of the most profound psychological shocks for Japanese prisoners. On board the USS Enterprise, holiday celebrations surpassed the most lavish pre-war Japanese New Year feasts. Records from December 25, 1944, listed roast turkey with stuffing, ham glazed with pineapple, mashed and sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, 3 types of vegetables, fresh rolls, 3 varieties of pie, ice cream, candy, nuts, and coffee. Seaman First Class Hiroshi Nakamura, held aboard the USS Saratoga, recorded in a hidden diary, "The Americans celebrated Christmas while we attacked them. Every sailor received gifts from home organization, cigarettes, candy, books, razors. Their joy and abundance seemed endless. The mess hall was decorated with paper ornaments and lights. They sang songs, played music, and laughed together. They were happy. Meanwhile, we were starving and dying for the Emperor, while our enemies celebrated in abundance. That was when I realized Japan had already lost. The revelation went far beyond food. It shook the foundation of our worldview. The Yamato spirit, Japan's belief that sheer willpower could overcome material disadvantage, collapsed against the reality of American industrial power. Ensign Teo Yamamoto, captured at Okinawa, later reflected, "We were told Americans were soft, weakened by comfort, but I watched them fight fires for 12 hours, eat ice cream, and then go right back into battle. Their abundance didn't weaken them, it strengthened them. We were the weak ones pretending that spirit could replace food." By the end of the war, Japanese prisoners had witnessed what once seemed impossible. Ships turning seawater into drinking water, ice cream served in tropical heat, movie theaters at sea, laundries running during combat, hospitals floating in battle zones, and machine shops repairing planes and ships mid-fight. They had eaten foods most Japanese citizens had never seen: hamburgers, hot dogs, milkshakes, apple pie, chocolate cake. They had experienced the abundance of democracy, sailors and officers eating the same meals, men of all races serving together, and even enemies receiving medical treatment. When these prisoners returned home after Japan's surrender, they carried these memories with them, unintentionally becoming ambassadors of American abundance. Their stories were more persuasive than any Allied propaganda. They spoke of ships where sailors complained about food that Japanese soldiers would have considered feasts, of ice cream as a routine dessert, of living conditions where enlisted men enjoyed greater comfort than Japanese nobility. Commander Mitsuo Fuchida, architect of the Pearl Harbor attack, was among those transformed. After experiencing American generosity firsthand, he converted to Christianity and became a missionary. He later said, "The Americans had every reason to hate me, to let me die. Instead, they gave me care, food, and dignity." That generosity of spirit was stronger than any weapon. According to U.S. Navy records, daily caloric intake per sailor averaged 4,100 calories, compared to the Japanese Navy's 2,400. Large American carriers produced 140,000 gallons of fresh water daily. The USS Lexington churned out 500 gallons of ice cream every day. The USS Enterprise baked 15,000 loaves of bread daily. Mail arrived weekly even in combat zones. 2 to 3 new films played aboard each week. Sailors received clean uniforms twice weekly and had full surgical facilities at sea. The Japanese prisoners who experienced these conditions returned to a devastated homeland, carrying a transformative message: that the enemy's strength came not from cruelty but from kindness, not from scarcity but from abundance, not from spiritual superiority, but from superior organization and logistics. Their accounts helped prepare Japan for its post-war transformation under American occupation. They had seen the future, and it tasted like chocolate ice cream, served at sea in the middle of war. The conversion of Japanese soldiers through exposure to American naval life represents one of the most complete ideological reversals in modern history. Warriors who once expected to die for the emperor survived to tell stories of American ice cream machines. Pilots who had intended suicide missions lived to witness democracy's effortless plenty. Sailors trained to believe in spiritual warfare discovered that material comfort didn't corrupt fighting spirit. It sustained it. In the end, the ice cream machines on American carriers accomplished what bombs could not: the complete dismantling of Japan's militarist mythology. The soft-serve machines that ran while ships burned, the fresh bread baked amid battle, and the medical care extended to enemies all carried the same message. These experiences reshaped Japan's understanding of American power and their own defeat. They returned home not as broken warriors, but as witnesses to an unimaginable abundance, bearing truths that would help transform Japan from an empire of war into a democratic ally. This story reminds us that not all victories are won through destruction. Some are achieved through demonstration, through abundance, compassion, and dignity. It shows that the true measure of a nation's strength lies not in how it destroys its enemies, but in how it treats them. The Japanese, who once doubted that American carriers could have ice cream machines, finally understood that democracy's greatest weapon was its capacity to create plenty, even in war, and to share that abundance even with its foes.